I had failure after failure after failure trying to drill our first well. And so I thought, I had a little bit of success in the US learning. One of the things I did was I went to probably what a lot of millennials do or whatever. I went to how to drill your own well on Google.
Right.
And I got to howtodrillyourownwell.org or .com and
right.
Going to Home Depot and Lowe's.
There's the Association of Well Drillers United or something like that.
Yeah, well, this guy was basically just a tutorial guy on YouTube, and I started trying to do it, and I got a little bit of success, and I went, and then I got one in, and I was like, okay, time to go to Africa. Like, let's go. And so I took 1 ton of well drilling equipment with me on flights, and luckily Qatar Airlines found out what I was doing. I'd gone on Joe Rogan's podcast and a few others, and a video of me went viral, and it was on Jimmy Kimmel and the Today Show, and I was on TMZ. I was sandwiched in between really good company. It was Lindsay Lohan and right before Honey Boo Boo.
Well, if you had asked me where on TMZ would you be sandwiched between, I would have probably guessed that. So, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Right. But people heard I was living in this hut and I was going back. And if anyone's watching on video, this was my home for a full year. And I've built up probably close to 3 years in huts like this. And now we've gone from huts to real great, sustainably built like homes that will last 50 plus years. And people are like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And I'm like, we're going to go. And this is what we're going to do. And there's a team there that is hungry, ready. They're chomping at the bit to start drilling wells. So I'm going to do that. And when I got there, I was a white belt well driller. I actually had no experience, right? And this is a very technical job. You're wrestling the earth and you come across all these different geological zones and collapsing zones, and everything you do doesn't work and it's not prime conditions. And I had blisters all over my hands and my back it was the hardest back-breaking work I've ever done. Each well is about 1 ton of well drilling equipment. And we're having to hike it in through the rainforest where there are no roads. We're having to carry bags of bricks and bags of cement and bags of gravel and just hike that in. It was brutal. So after 6 months of failure, and honestly, I started feeling guilty. Like, are we getting people's hopes up who have literally lost children? And I'm not the guy. And how am I doing this? And I don't want to, I got to get some more training or whatever. And there's a hero of the story that comes in where when I got malaria and I went back to Uganda, I called my father figure in Congo. And I said, I don't know what to do. Maybe I do need to go home and get more training. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to call a guy. Maybe he'll call you and give you some advice. He's gotten some wins under his belt and this is what he does. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And he goes, wait, I think you need to hear something right now. One, you call it Fight for the Forgotten. That's the name of the organization. They told you everyone else calls them the Forest People, but they call themselves the Forgotten. If that's the name of the organization, you have to remember who or why and who you fight for. Remember who, why, and who you fight for. I was like, oh, that's good. Don't give up quite yet. And then he said, you need to hear this because you have malaria. It's a mosquito-borne parasite. But here's a Swahili proverb. And it's, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try to sleep in a closed room with a mosquito. And it was like kind of tongue in cheek. And I needed to have a little bit of a laugh. But then I thought about it more and I'm like, whoa, I have faced opponents 6'7", 6'8", 6'10", heavyweight fighters taking big swings at me, right? And luckily with the tall guys, I always had the biggest luck and I finished those guys in the first round. But I'm like, man, those guys couldn't beat me up as much as a little mosquito. Or a parasite inside that mosquito, a microscopic parasite. It's like, well, if that's true, and if this is some ancient wisdom from these people who I love and who have accepted me and allowed me to come live with them, and they've changed my life. And if I'm really partnering to try to do something great for them, and we have this team built that are my heroes, like, man, like if that mosquito can make that big of a difference, how much more of a difference can I make? Can they make? Can all of us make together? Like, it's huge. It just is. That's a fact. If we have it, not as an afterthought, but as like foresight and like, instead of hindsight, like we're going to do this and we're going to cast the vision. People are going to catch the vision and we're going to take action.
It's beautiful. The moment I wouldn't call it giving up, but where you're looking at, the bigger picture, feeling guilty, letting them down. Am I the right person? It kind of gave you a little bit of permission to reframe it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I use the word, Justin, a lot, the phrase context is decisive. So I'm going to throw out a hypothesis here, connecting your story. I use this phrase a lot on our podcast, clean it up or dial me in where I'm maybe off or wrong. And it's a question ultimately, Justin, but some observations and some comments. Addiction, which you struggled with, and from what I know from a very near and dear friend of mine, a former business partner, somebody I've known since I was 6 years old, and other people in my life and world, it's very real. Yeah. And it is fighting for your life every day, even though it's seemingly people are clean or they have a certain period of time where they're not using, or whether it's drinking or pills or whatever it is. And it could be gambling. The fight for your life is real. So there's no drama in when you say, you're fighting for your life. And to do the fight for others, for the forgotten, it has to start with you. And whether it was the first time, the second time, but when you got on top of it and were able to dominate it, if you will, for lack of a better word, and clean me up where I'm wrong, you said something that really spoke to me, where it sucked your soul and it left you empty and you lost a sense of who you are. The other side of that is when you have nothing, you can do anything with it. And it's like a blank canvas. So the last piece maybe of you to let go of what still was there was that 33 pounds. And while it's literally, I'm being a little bit facetious, but literally, it was matter, it was material, liquid or whatever. But that was like that last millimeter of the 100-meter dash that said, whoa. And the context, which is always decisive, reframed it. And I'm not saying you were giving up, but you were questioning and you were doubting, which is human.
Yeah.
And this gentleman on the phone and who he got you in touch with, and your ability to get healthy again and come back with fresh eyes and a new context, and that frame, that canvas that painters paint on, which we are all artists of our own life. There was nothing there. And now you filled it in with pure possibility. You can hear the passion. You can hear the love. You can hear, you're like, I don't want to get too, you're reborn. You're transformed. And it's just so touching and so moving. And, you're weaving in Swahili philosophy and these ancient thoughts and lessons that you've learned, and using modern technology and the struggles and the lessons that you've learned from your own addiction and your own suicidal thoughts. It's just a beautiful bringing together. And I'm not doing this to blow smoke up your butt. I'm just very present to it all, bringing it together.